The morning I walked into my uncle's office should have been like any other. The glass doors of Henderson Tech Solutions reflected the early sunlight, and the receptionist smiled her usual greeting. But something felt different. Maybe it was the way my uncle's secretary avoided eye contact, or how the hallway seemed quieter than usual. Little did I know that in 15 minutes, everything I'd built over the last decade would be handed to someone else. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The first red light on my drive to work that Tuesday morning added 7 minutes to my commute. 7 minutes that changed everything. If I'd arrived on time, maybe Uncle Richard would have softened the blow differently. Instead, I was rushing through the lobby, checking my watch, worried about missing our weekly strategy meeting. "Michael, good, you're here," Uncle Richard said when I reached his office door. His usual warmth was missing, replaced by something formal, almost rehearsed. He'd never called me Michael at work before. It was always Mike, or more often, Kid, even though I was 35. I'd spent 10 years turning his small electronics repair shop into a thriving tech solutions company. Started as his weekend helper at 16, graduated to full-time junior tech at 18, worked my way up to operations manager by 25. 5 years ago, we'd pivoted to business software solutions, my idea that quintupled our revenue. The conference room was already full when we walked in. Board members, department heads, people I'd hired and trained. Sarah from HR wouldn't meet my eyes. James from sales was fidgeting with his pen. Uncle Richard gestured to an empty chair, but something told me not to sit. "Mike," he began, then stopped himself. Michael has been instrumental in building this company. Without his vision, dedication, and hard work, we wouldn't be where we are today. He paused, consulting notes that shook slightly in his hands. That's why this decision was particularly difficult. The room grew even quieter. I felt my stomach drop. After much consideration and consultation with our board, I've decided to name Trevor as the new Chief Operating Officer of Henderson Tech Solutions, effective immediately. He'll also be my successor as CEO when I step down next year. Trevor. My cousin Trevor, who'd graduated business school 6 months ago and joined the company 2 weeks ago as a marketing consultant. Trevor, who'd never worked a day in electronics, never understood the technical side, never stayed past 5 o'clock. The words didn't process immediately. They floated in the air like smoke, impossible to grasp. I stood there, watching mouths move, seeing nods, hearing someone mention fresh perspectives and new leadership direction. Later, alone in my office, the reality settled in. My desk still held the blueprints for our new data center expansion, a project I'd spent 18 months planning. The framed photo of our first office, just 3 employees in a converted garage, sat next to my monitor. Every system in this building, every procedure, every partnership, I'd built them or improved them. The afternoon meetings continued without me. I sent an email to my team explaining I needed a few days off, citing family matters. The irony wasn't lost on me. That evening, I sat in my apartment, a 1-bedroom I'd kept despite the salary increases because I'd been saving to buy into the company as a partner. Uncle Richard had promised that conversation would happen soon, always pushing it back another quarter. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues expressing shock and concern. David from procurement. "This doesn't make sense, Mike. You are this company." Lisa from development. "We're all confused here. What happened?" Even clients reached out. "Heard about changes at Henderson. Hope you're staying on board, Mike." I ignored them all, staring instead at my laptop screen. My personal email contained a message from Uncle Richard, sent at 11:47 p.m. "Mike, I need to explain. Come to the house tomorrow afternoon. This isn't what it seems." But I knew exactly what it was. Blood trumps years of loyalty, expertise, and accomplishment. Trevor shared his last name. I shared only his vision for the company. The next morning, I dressed as usual. Navy suit, white shirt, modest watch. Professional appearance had been important to Uncle Richard since my first day. "Success begins with looking the part," he'd say. Now I wondered what part I was supposed to look. The drive to his house took 40 minutes through suburban Philadelphia. I'd made this trip countless times, usually bearing news of contracts won or technical breakthroughs. Today, I carried only questions. Mrs. Henderson, Aunt Diane, opened the door. Her warm smile faltered when she saw me. "Oh, Mike, come in. Richard's in the study." The study smelled of old books and cigar smoke, a scent that once meant success and mentorship. Uncle Richard stood by the window, suddenly looking every bit his 68 years. "I expected anger," he said without turning. "I'm disappointed," I corrected. "There's a difference." He finally faced me. His eyes were red-rimmed. "You don't understand the pressures I'm under." "Then help me understand." He sank into his leather chair, the one where I'd sat learning business principles at 15. "The board. My brother James." James. Trevor's father, Uncle Richard's younger brother, the one who'd invested heavily in the company 3 years ago. James has been buying up shares quietly. He owns 38% now. Combined with his allies on the board, he can force me out. Unless you give him what he wants. His son as your successor. It's not just about him. Trevor has potential, Mike. He just needs time to learn. 10 years, I interrupted. That's how much time I've given this company. Every weekend, every holiday, every opportunity I've passed up. Stanford's MBA program, Google's recruitment offer, startup ventures. I chose Henderson Tech because I believed it was my future. Uncle. Richard stood and walked to his desk, pulling out an envelope. "I haven't been idle, Mike. I saw this coming." Inside the envelope, stock certificates. Legal documents, my name printed clearly. 15% of the company. I've been buying shares wherever I could, transferring some to your name gradually. You're now a significant shareholder. I studied the papers. Legal jargon mixed with financial terms, but the numbers were clear. "This doesn't change the immediate situation," I said. "Trevor is still in charge. He's COO. You're now VP of Operations and Chief Technical Officer. Different paths to the same goal. James gets his way for now, but you remain essential, indispensable." "Is this supposed to make me grateful?" His expression hardened. "It's supposed to make you strategic. You built something remarkable, Mike. Don't abandon it out of pride." I left the papers on his desk and walked out. Back at my apartment, my phone rang. Private number. "Mike, it's Samantha Chen. Our biggest client, CEO of Chen Industries. I need to discuss something urgent. Not over the phone. Can you meet me tonight?" Samantha had been instrumental in our pivot to business solutions. Her company had been our first major client, their contract worth millions annually. We met at a downtown restaurant. She was direct as always. "I've heard about the changes at Henderson. Trevor Henderson be our point of contact moving forward?" "That's correct." "Then I'm informing you first. Chen Industries will be terminating our contract at the next renewal date. We don't trust Trevor to handle our needs. We trust you." I felt something shift inside me. Anger, opportunity, or maybe both. "Samantha, I appreciate your confidence. We're not the only ones, Mike. Rodriguez Construction, Williams Bank, Dataflow, we've all been talking. We're prepared to offer you something, your own company. We'll be your founding clients." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad. On one page, stay at Henderson. Guaranteed salary, stock ownership, eventual board seat. On the other, start new company. Uncertainty, stress, the need to rebuild everything. By morning, I had my answer. I arrived at Henderson Tech early before the security system logged employees. My keycard still worked. I'd expected Uncle Richard to deactivate it. My office was exactly as I'd left it. Projects half finished, calendars marking deadlines only I understood. Trevor hadn't even moved in yet. I packed my personal items, the photo, a few awards, technical manuals I'd authored. By 7 a.m., I'd sent my resignation to HR. Subject line, effective immediately. At 8, my phone started ringing. Uncle Richard, Trevor, board members. Let them go to voicemail, focusing instead on my new legal pad pages. Phoenix Technical Solutions, Day 1. By 9, news had spread. My former team members began arriving at the reception area. 9 of my best engineers, 2 project managers, our lead architect. They gathered in what used to be my office. Mike, David spoke for them all. We want to follow you. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. I'd anticipated this, had even prepared a response about staying professional, not raiding the company I'd helped build. I can't ask you to leave secure positions. You're not asking, we're telling. Henderson without you? It's not the company we signed on for. By 10 a.m., I had 15 resignations sitting on my desk. By noon, Uncle Richard himself appeared at my door. You're destroying everything we built. I'm leaving it exactly as you wanted, in Trevor's capable hands. His face reddened. You think James won't retaliate? You think he'll let you succeed? I think he'll try. And I think trying is what builds character. You taught me that. Over the next 2 weeks, the exodus continued. 27 employees followed me to Phoenix Technical Solutions. We worked from a rented warehouse initially, but within 6 months, we'd secured 3 of Henderson's former clients and 2 new ones. Trevor struggled. His inexperience showed in delayed projects and lost contracts. Uncle Richard tried to keep the company stable, but the talent drain proved too significant. A year later, Uncle Richard visited me at Phoenix Technical's new headquarters. Actual offices now, not a warehouse. I owe you an apology, he said, accepting my offer of coffee. You owe me nothing. You gave me 10 years of education. I'm applying for it. Henderson Tech is for sale. James is forcing a liquidation. The board wants to avoid bankruptcy. I set down my cup. And I want you to buy it. With your success, here the banks will back you. You can have everything back. I leaned back in my chair, considering, the circle completing itself. No, he looked surprised. I already have everything, Uncle Richard. What happened at Henderson made me realize something. I don't need to inherit a legacy. I can build my own. He smiled then, a genuine smile. You always were the smarter nephew. 6 months later, Henderson Tech Solutions closed its doors. Trevor moved to Boston, taking a position with one of his father's friends. Uncle Richard retired to Florida. James sold his shares at a loss. Phoenix Technical Solutions continued to grow. My team, loyal and motivated, pushed innovation. We developed software solutions that revolutionized small business operations. Within 3 years, we surpassed Henderson's peak revenue. I kept the photo from that first office, though. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what began. The small electronics shop where a teenager learned to dream bigger than his circumstances. Sometimes, when training new hires, I share pieces of the story. Not betrayal or disappointment, but the lesson. Success isn't inherited. It's earned through resilience, innovation, and the courage to build again when everything falls apart. 2 years after leaving Henderson, I married Sarah from HR. She'd resigned the day after I did, saying she couldn't work for a company that treated loyalty like a liability. We have a daughter now, Emily, who already shows interest in taking apart electronics. The other evening, I received an email from Trevor. Subject: Congratulations and apology. Mike, I've followed Phoenix's success. I realize now I was a pawn in a larger game. You deserved better. I'm working as a financial consultant now. trying to earn my own way. If you ever need someone who understands the weight of names and expectations, I'm here. Trevor, I responded. We all play the hands we're dealt. You're doing well. Stay in touch. Because here's what I learned from losing everything I thought I'd built. Sometimes the greatest gift is having something taken away. It forces you to discover strengths you never knew you had. To build something truly your own, not an extension of someone else's legacy. They say blood is thicker than water, but sweat, tears, and late-night innovations create bonds that run deeper than genetics. My team at Phoenix? They're my real family now. The funny thing about legacies? They're not about what you inherit. They're about what you create from scratch, when everything else is stripped away. Every morning when I walk into Phoenix Technical Solutions, I don't see a company built from betrayal. I see an empire forged from resilience. The glass doors don't reflect a man who lost his inheritance. They show someone who gained his independence. That first red light on that fateful Tuesday morning, it didn't make me late for a meeting. It was the first step toward arriving at my true destination. Sometimes the road closes not to block your path, but to redirect you to something better. The question was never whether I could succeed after Uncle Richard's decision. The question was whether I had the courage to discover what I was truly capable of when the safety net disappeared. The answer came in every line of code we wrote, every client we served, every innovation we created. Not as inheritance, but as achievement. That's the real story. Not about what was taken from me, but about what I discovered within myself when I had to start over. The uncle who replaced me with my cousin did me an inadvertent favor. He didn't end my story. He removed the preface and let me write my own novel. My office at Phoenix still has a view of the city. But unlike Uncle Richard's office, which faced backwards toward the company's history, mine looks forward. Every morning, I see the skyline changing, growing, moving ahead. That's where I belong. Not managing someone else's legacy, but building. Tomorrow, the uncle who said those words, "Your cousin will take over now," isn't a villain in my story. He's a catalyst, the match that set off the explosion of potential I didn't know I possessed. For that, inadvertently, I owe him gratitude. 6 months ago, Emily found an old electronics kit in my garage, the same brand Uncle Richard used to teach me at 15. Now I teach her, watching her small hands carefully connect circuits. "Why do we always test it 2 times, Daddy?" she asks. "Because measuring twice means we only have to build once," I reply, using Uncle Richard's words without hesitation. Some lessons transcend circumstances. Some teachers remain teachers even when they stop being mentors. The circle isn't complete. It never is in real life. But it's evolving, growing wider, encompassing new people, new possibilities. That Tuesday morning, 10 years into my career, my uncle told me my cousin would take over. In reality, he handed me the keys to my own kingdom. I just had to build the castle myself. Every challenge afterward, finding funding, hiring talent, winning clients, proved I never needed the inheritance. I needed the inspiration to pursue my own path. Today, Phoenix Technical Solutions stands 3 stories taller than Henderson Tech ever did. Our innovation center works on projects Uncle Richard never dreamed possible. Our company culture values loyalty, merit, and bold thinking over birthright. I kept one thing from that old office: Uncle Richard's letter opener. Bronze, heavy, engraved with Henderson Tech Solutions, founded 1982. It sits on my desk as a daily reminder. Not of what I lost, but of what I gained, the freedom to succeed on my own terms. The knowledge that my achievements belong solely to my efforts. The certainty that I can build something magnificent from scratch. The red light that morning hadn't made me late. It had made me early. Early for the rest of my life. That's the unexpected gift hidden in betrayal. It doesn't destroy you if you don't let it. Instead, it reveals reserves of strength you never knew existed. My uncle's words echo differently now. Your cousin will take over now. He was right. Trevor took over the company. I took over my destiny. That's worth more than any inheritance. The brass nameplate on my door still felt surreal. Michael Hartman, CEO and founder. 3 years had passed since that fateful announcement, but some mornings I still caught myself expecting to walk into Uncle Richard's company instead of my own. Phoenix Technical Solutions had outgrown its second office space. Our engineering team now occupied an entire floor of the Meridian building downtown. The view from my office stretched across the Delaware River, where cargo ships traced invisible lines between past and future. Sir, there's a situation with the Morrison account. Priya, my executive assistant, appeared at my door with that particular expression that meant trouble. Morrison Logistics was our third largest client. Their CEO, David Morrison, had been grilling our support team for weeks about system performances that no one else was experiencing. Define situation, I said, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. They're threatening to switch vendors. Apparently, someone's been showing them competing proposals. Someone didn't need naming. James Henderson still had connections throughout Philadelphia's business community. The Whisper campaign had started 6 months ago. Subtle hints that Phoenix was overextending or lacking enterprise experience. I checked my calendar. Set up a meeting with Morrison this afternoon, full presentation team. And Priya, get me everything we have on who's been courting their account. The afternoon meeting revealed what I suspected. Morrison's IT director, Patricia Vance, had received unsolicited proposals from Henderson Tech's successor company, Henderson and Associates, which Trevor had launched after the original went under. With all due respect, Mr. Hartman, Morrison said, leaning back in his conference room chair, Henderson and Associates is offering the same services at 30% less cost. With all due respect, Mr. Morrison, I replied, opening my laptop, let me show you what that 30% cut means in terms of system reliability, security protocols, and future scalability. The presentation took an hour. Charts, projections, risk assessments. By the end, Morrison's confidence in switching vendors had visibly wavered. We'll need time to review, he said finally. Walking to my car afterward, I found a handwritten note under the windshield wiper. Some battles you win, others merely delay. J.H. James Henderson. My phone buzzed with a secure message from our IT security team. Attempted breach detected. Same signature as the previous 3 attempts. The cyber attacks had started last month. Nothing sophisticated enough to succeed, but persistent enough to be concerning. Our security logs traced them to several IP addresses, all eventually leading back to cafes and libraries around Philadelphia. Back at the office, I gathered my core team, David Chen, Head of Security, Lisa Okonkwo, Chief Technology Officer, and Sarah Jameson, VP of Client Relations. The Morrison account is the tip, I said, spreading Morrison's file across the conference table. James is systematically targeting our largest clients. He's using Trevor as the public face, the reformed nephew seeking redemption while positioning Henderson and Associates as the underdog alternative. What's our counter strategy? Lisa asked, already taking notes. We stop reacting and start leading. Lisa, I want our research team accelerating development on the quantum-resistant encryption protocols. David, double our security staff and implement the new intrusion detection system. That'll cost us, David pointed out. Falling behind costs. More. Sarah, schedule one-on-one meetings with every major client, not sales calls, strategy sessions. Show them our 5-year roadmap. The next month, we tested everything we'd built. James's campaign intensified. Anonymous pamphlets appeared at industry conferences, questioning Phoenix's financial stability. Online forums filled with fake accounts spreading doubts about our service quality. Trevor appeared on a local business podcast, speaking about innovative challengers disrupting established markets. He'd sharpened his pitch, learned to speak the language of disruption while maintaining an air of wounded humility. Worse, it was working. 2 mid-tier clients jumped ship. Employee retention became a challenge as competitors approached our junior staff with inflated salary offers. I found myself returning to habits from my Henderson Tech days, arriving before dawn, staying past midnight. Sarah noticed first. "You're pacing like Uncle Richard used to," she said over coffee one morning, obsessing over every detail. "I didn't survive building this company to watch it dismantled by the people who pushed me out." "No," she agreed, "but you also didn't build Phoenix to become what you left." Her words hit harder than any rival's campaign. That night, unable to sleep, I reviewed 3 years of security footage from our office. The clips told a story. From the early days of employees sleeping on couches during product launches to recent weeks, where the office emptied by 6 p.m. I'd been so focused on protecting what we'd built that I'd forgotten what made it worth building. The turning point came, unexpectedly. Eric Walsh, CEO of Walsh Manufacturing, our second largest client, requested an unusual meeting. Not at his office or ours, but at his family's farmhouse an hour outside the city. The Walsh property had been in his family for generations. Eric's grandfather had started the manufacturing business in a barn that still stood, now converted to a workshop for Eric's woodworking hobby. "I've been fielding calls from Henderson and Associates," Eric said as we walked the property. "Your cousin's quite persistent." I waited for the pivot to price negotiations. "Yesterday, Trevor came personally, made his pitch. Impressive presentation." "I imagine so, except it showed your company's innovations rebranded with his logo." I stopped walking. "What?" "The real-time inventory tracking system. The predictive maintenance algorithms. Even the user interface design. All there, just with Henderson colors instead of Phoenix." We reached the old barn. Inside, Eric's current project sat on a workbench, a rocking chair he was crafting for his first grandchild. "My grandfather built this barn exactly once," Eric said, running his hand along hand-cut beams. "Your Uncle Richard used to visit him here. They'd drink whiskey and argue about the future of business." "I didn't know that." "Your uncle believed in original work. Building something true. He hated shortcuts, imitations. It's why I was surprised when he pushed you out, and it's why I'm not switching to Trevor." "Thank you, Eric." "Don't thank me. Beat them with better work, not just defensive maneuvers. Give me innovations they can't copy, problems they can't solve." That's what Richard would do. Driving back to the city, I realized our mistake. We'd been protecting existing ground instead of claiming new territory. That evening, I called an all-hands meeting. "We're launching Project Starlight," I announced. "A complete reimagining of enterprise software integration. Everything from the ground up. And this time, we patent every line." The energy in the room shifted. Defensive posturing gave way to creative excitement. Our engineers spent weekends brainstorming. The culture I'd worried was slipping started returning. 3 months later, we unveiled Starlight at a private client event. The system didn't just improve business operations. It transformed them. Real-time analytics, AI-driven predictions, seamless integration across platforms that had never communicated before. Morrison Logistics was among the attendees. David Morrison approached me after the demonstration, Patricia Vance at his side. "We've been testing Henderson and Associates prototype," Patricia said. "It's good, familiar, exactly like our current Phoenix system." "Because it is," I replied. "They've been copying, not innovating." "We verified all the code," David added. "Your system is genuinely new. Revolutionary, actually." "Does this mean we're staying with Phoenix, and we're interested in being Starlight's first adopter?" Word spread quickly. Within weeks, 12 major clients committed to Starlight upgrades. Industry publications took notice. TechCrunch ran a feature, "Phoenix Rising, How one CEO turned betrayal into innovation. But James Henderson wasn't finished. If copying failed, he'd try direct interference. Anonymous tips reached our investors about accounting irregularities. Health inspectors appeared unannounced. Zoning complaints materialized from nowhere. Each challenge required navigation. We hired the best legal team, maintained immaculate records, and turned compliance into a competitive advantage. When authorities cleared us each time, it reinforced client trust. The most personal attack came through Sarah. James attempted to recruit her, offering a CEO position at Henderson & Associates and twice her current salary. She recorded the conversation and shared it with me that evening at our favorite dinner spot. "What's my position worth?" she asked with characteristic directness. "Name it." "That's not the question. The question is, what's our mission worth?" "Everything." "Then act like it. Stop meeting every attack. Start something they can't challenge." Her words echoed Eric Walsh's advice. That night, sketching on napkins over wine, we conceived an idea that went beyond software. The Phoenix Technology Incubator. Not just our company, but a launchpad for regional innovation. We'd invest in startups, provide mentorship, create a tech ecosystem that lifted the entire Philadelphia area. When James heard about the incubator plan, he attempted to copy that too. Henderson & Associates announced their own innovation initiative. But without genuine commitment to nurturing new ideas, their program struggled to attract talent. 6 months into the incubator's first year, we'd funded 8 startups. 3 showed immediate promise. 1, a cybersecurity firm founded by recent MIT graduates, solved problems we'd struggled with for months. The ecosystem grew organically. Universities sent their brightest students for internships. Venture capitalists noticed Philadelphia's emerging tech scene. Employment opportunities multiplied across the region. The irony wasn't lost on me. By trying to destroy Phoenix, James had pushed us to create something far larger than just another tech company. On a rainy Tuesday morning, exactly 4 years after Uncle Richard's announcement, I received an unexpected visitor. Trevor Henderson stood in our lobby, flanked not by lawyers or business associates, but alone. "I'd like to speak with you," he said simply. "No recordings, no witnesses, just us." We met in my office. He looked tired, older than his years. "My father's not well," he began. "Heart problems. Stress-related, the doctors say." I remained silent. "The constant attacks on your company. That's not me anymore. I've learned some things. About my father. About myself. Continue. Henderson & Associates is failing, not because you're better at business, because we built it on destruction, not creation. When your foundation is someone else's downfall, the structure's unstable." Trevor reached into his briefcase and extracted a thick folder. "This contains everything. James's financial dealings, the vendor agreements trying to undercut you, the source of those cyber attacks. My father hired a firm out of Boston. The accounts he uses to spread rumors online." Why bring this to me? Because I need to stop before he destroys himself. And because you were right about something Uncle Richard always said. A man makes himself through what he builds, not what he tears down. I examined the documents. Evidence of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and deliberate interference. Enough to pursue legal action or destroy James Henderson's reputation entirely. "What do you want in return?" I asked. "The chance to apologize publicly. To set the record straight. My father won't approve, but I don't need his approval anymore." That afternoon, I met with my leadership team and our legal counsel. The evidence Trevor provided was damning, but prosecution would mean years of litigation. "Let's offer a different solution," I proposed. 2 days later, James Henderson received our terms: immediate cessation of all interference operations, public acknowledgement of Phoenix's innovations and market position, a $50,000 donation to the Phoenix. Technology incubator, no further use of Henderson family name in competitive business ventures. The alternative, federal prosecution for the documented attempts at corporate sabotage. James accepted. He also retired from all business activities, citing health concerns. Trevor kept his word. At a technology conference 3 weeks later, he introduced his keynote presentation with an unexpected statement. I owe an apology to Michael Hartman and Phoenix Technical Solutions. For too long, I let family politics cloud my business judgment. Michael built something extraordinary from scratch. Phoenix succeeds because of innovation, not inheritance. I've learned that success isn't about taking over, it's about building up. The industry took notice. Clients who'd been wavering recommitted. New partnerships emerged. The narrative shifted from family feud to innovation over imitation. 3 months later, I made a conscious decision. No more security checks for Trevor Henderson's digital footprint. Time to stop fighting shadows and trust that people can change. The incubator's second year brought unexpected visitors. A delegation from Singapore's Economic Development Board arrived, seeking to replicate our model. Germany's top engineering university proposed an exchange program. Phoenix Technical Solutions evolved beyond recovery into expansion. We opened offices in Seattle and Boston. The innovations that started as defensive measures became industry standards. One evening, working late at the Meridian building, I found myself standing where Uncle Richard's old office used to be, now converted to premium condominiums. The building's new residents probably had no idea about the business history layered beneath their designer furniture. Sarah found me there, having tracked my location. Visiting ghosts? She asked, joining me at the window. Understanding them, maybe. Uncle Richard thought giving the company to Trevor would preserve Henderson's legacy. But legacies aren't buildings or names. They're impacts. Right. The employees we've developed, the innovations we've created, the ecosystem we've nurtured. That's a legacy. 6 months ago, Emily asked about the letter opener on my desk, the Henderson Tech artifact I'd kept. Did you take it from your old job, Daddy? Your great-uncle Richard gave it to me many years ago. Is he mad that you have it? I considered her question carefully. People get mad about different things as they grow up. Your great-uncle was upset about changes. Sometimes change makes people act in ways they regret later. Like when I get mad at Tommy, but then we play together the next day. Exactly like that. From children to corporations, the patterns repeat. Jealousy, betrayal, redemption, growth. The last chapter of this saga came unexpectedly. A package arrived. No return address, postmarked from Florida. Inside, Uncle Richard's private journals from Henderson Tech's early years, along with a BI note on familiar stationery. Mike, these belong with someone who understands building from scratch. I was wrong to choose blood over merit. You've proven what true legacy means. Uncle Richard. The journals offered glimpses into challenges I'd never imagined. Cash flow crises, technical failures, partners who'd tried to buy him out cheaply. One entry, dated January 1995, read, "Today young Mike fixed his first circuit board. He's got steady hands and patience. Something tells me this boy might grow into more than just a part-time helper." Sitting in my office that night, I realized the full circle. Uncle Richard had seen potential but let fear and family pressure override wisdom. His mistake became my catalyst. Sometimes mentors teach through examples, sometimes through failures. The entries taught me something else. Innovation requires destruction. Uncle Richard had dismantled tradition to build Henderson. Tech, I'd dismantled safety for Phoenix. Trevor had dismantled denial for growth. Each generation tears down to rebuild higher. Approaching Phoenix Technical Solutions' 5th anniversary, I instituted a new company policy. Every year, we select one junior employee to receive full CEO privileges for a day. They attend board meetings, make presentations, and experience the weight of leadership. Maya Chen, a 24-year-old software engineer from Singapore, was our third selection. Midway through her day, she asked me, "Do you ever regret not taking over Henderson Tech immediately when you had the chance?" "Every time I sign a patent for something we invented here." She smiled. "Because you wouldn't have invented it there. And neither would you. The team we've built, the culture we've created, it required starting fresh. Sometimes the best inheritance is no inheritance." Last week, I spoke at the same business conference where Uncle Richard had once been keynote speaker. The conference hall had been renovated, larger, modern, filled with technology Henderson Tech could never have afforded. 5 years ago, I began my presentation. I received news that changed everything. My uncle chose my cousin to inherit the company I'd built for a decade. Today, I'm grateful for that decision. The audience shifted, expecting a revenge narrative. That choice taught me that real power isn't inherited. It's earned through persistence after rejection. Real innovation isn't copied. It emerges from original problems solved by unique perspectives. And real legacy isn't about blood. It's about the impact you create for people you may never meet. After the presentation, a young entrepreneur approached me. "Mr. Hartman, I just got passed over for promotion at my startup. They brought in someone's relative from outside. Your story gives me hope." "What's your idea?" I asked, genuinely curious. An hour later, we'd outlined her business plan on coffee shop napkins. By month end, Phoenix Incubator had its next investment. The cycle continues. Trevor reached out again recently, not for business, but for advice. He's teaching entrepreneurship at Temple University, using Phoenix's story as a case study in resilience and ethical innovation. His students visit our offices quarterly, bringing fresh questions that keep our perspectives sharp. Even James, now retired in Scottsdale, occasionally sends brief messages. No apologies, but acknowledgments. Read about Phoenix's European expansion, bold move. Progress wears many faces. Standing on Phoenix Technical's rooftop deck, watching the 4th of July fireworks burst over the Delaware, I reflected on transformation. This building's lights shine brighter than Henderson Tech's ever did. Our team's innovations echoing farther than Uncle Richard dared dream. Failure planted seeds. Of success couldn't. 2 new beginnings made possible by necessary endings. I toasted Sarah as Pennsylvania's display illuminated our city's skyline. The champagne tasted like the future, crisp, promising, earned, not inherited, created. The morning call came from an unknown number, but the voice was unmistakable. Dr. Elizabeth Morton from Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Innovation Lab, the very person who'd revolutionized quantum computing algorithms in the mid-2010s. "Mr. Hartman, I'm calling about your incubator. We have a problem too complex for any single company to solve." Intrigued, I invited her to Philadelphia that afternoon. She arrived with 3 graduate students and a portable quantum computing demonstration that they assembled in our main conference room. "Climate modeling," Dr. Morton explained, "manipulating holographic data projections. Current systems miss critical variables. We need computational power to process millions of simultaneous environmental factors for accurate predictions." One of her students, Marcus Williams, added, "The Paris Climate Accord goals require insights we simply can't generate with existing technology. Governments are requesting impossible timelines." I studied their demonstration. Elegant algorithms, trapped by hardware limitations. How much computational power are we talking about? Conservative estimate, 10,000 times current capacity. The scale dwarfed anything Phoenix had attempted. That evening, I convened an emergency board meeting. "We're not a climate research company," David Chen pointed out. "True. But we're positioned to become the infrastructure that makes climate research possible. If we can't solve the challenges we face, Why did we start this company? Sarah supported the initiative. The Henderson approach. Build what's profitable. The Phoenix approach. Build what's necessary and find profitability within necessity. Within a week, I'd allocated a quarter of our research budget to what we called the Athena Project, named after the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare against human challenges. The project attracted unexpected allies. Apple's former environmental VP reached out, offering proprietary datasets. Tesla advanced us lithium-ion production schedules for the computing clusters. Blue Origin provided access to their heat dissipation technologies, originally developed for spacecraft, now adapted for massively parallel processors. 3 months into Athena, Dr. Morton's team achieved the first breakthrough, a climate model, accurate to within 0.03 degrees over 5-year projections. Environmental organizations immediately requested access to the algorithms. This isn't just business development, Lisa Okonkwo observed during our quarterly review. This is geopolitical positioning. She was right. Nations began approaching Phoenix for environmental impact assessments. The European Union investigated making our models mandatory for carbon credit calculations. California's climate agency offered a 10-year contract that would triple our annual revenue. Yet amid this expansion, an old adversary resurfaced. William Chen, Patricia Vance's former mentor from her previous company, launched a climate modeling startup backed by fossil fuel interests. Their first move, attempt to patent environmental monitoring algorithms disturbingly similar to Athena components. They're copying again, David reported. But this time, they're copying something that could influence global climate policy. The stakes had transcended corporate rivalry. I authorized Lisa to recruit the best intellectual property attorneys in the field. Our legal team discovered that William Chen had hired several former Henderson and Associates consultants, veterans, of James's old playbook. The pattern continued, amplified by international implications. Fake technical papers appeared on science forums, questioning Athena's accuracy. Hacker groups, funded by undisclosed sources, attempted to infiltrate our systems with increasing sophistication. During this period, a letter arrived from an unusual source. NASA's Director of Earth Sciences requested a private meeting. Security protocols prohibited him from visiting our civilian facility, so I flew to JPL in Pasadena. The NASA facility bustled with activity. In a secure conference room, Director Harrison showed classified satellite data that made our climate models look conservative. Your Athena project might be humanity's best hope for preparing for what's coming, but there are groups working to ensure those preparations never happen. The same groups trying to invalidate our research? Same groups, different methods. Your corporate battles have evolved into something larger. He shared intelligence about coordinated climate change denial campaigns targeting major tech companies, developing environmental solutions. Phoenix had become their primary focus due to Athena's potential global influence. We can't officially ally with a private corporation, Harrison continued, but we can share data, off the record, through certain channels. The covert partnership transformed Athena. NASA's satellite readings filled gaps in our terrestrial models. Our precision jumped to 0.01 degrees, unprecedented accuracy. Climate scientists worldwide began adopting Phoenix protocols. Yet with recognition came responsibility. Small island nations sent delegations requesting climate resilience strategies. Their appeals revealed the human faces behind environmental statistics, communities facing displacement, economies dependent on disappearing resources, cultures threatened by rising seas. One evening, Teresa Malolo, Prime Minister of Tuvalu, visited our Philadelphia headquarters. Her presence commanded attention, a leader fighting to save her entire nation from submersion. Your models predict Tuvalu will be uninhabitable by 2055, she stated plainly. We need more than predictions. We need solutions. I convened our top engineers that night. By morning, we'd conceived the Migration Innovation Initiative. using Phoenix technology to help at-risk populations transition and adapt. Not just survival, but sustainable relocation. The initiative drew both praise and unprecedented scrutiny. Right-wing media portrayed Phoenix as profiting from climate fears. Left-wing activists questioned if technology could truly address systemic problems. Investors worried about political entanglements affecting profit margins. Pressure mounted from unexpected directions. Senator Margaret Holloway, chair of the Environment Committee, visited Philadelphia. Her staff had scheduled a typical corporate courtesy call, but she arrived early and unannounced. "Show me what you're really doing," she demanded. "Not the sales presentations, the actual work." I took her directly to the Athena lab. For 3 hours, Dr. Morton and her team demonstrated real-time climate modeling, refugee prediction algorithms, and resource optimization systems. Holloway asked technical questions that surpassed political posturing. "My daughter's an oceanographer," she explained afterward. "She's been tracking what your company achieved. Says you're 5 years ahead of academic institutions. We're building tools for people like your daughter to use. Then I need your testimony before Congress. They need to understand what private sector innovation can accomplish." The congressional hearing transformed into a watershed moment. Live-streamed globally, it showcased not just Phoenix's technology, but the broader potential of purpose-driven tech companies. During testimony, I submitted a bold proposal: the Global Environmental Computing Consortium, a public-private partnership where governments and corporations could pool resources to address climate challenges at scale. "The future isn't about nations competing with nature," I testified. "It's about humanity collaborating with technology to preserve our shared home." The proposal gained traction. Within months, 47 nations expressed interest, but bureaucratic processes moved glacially while climate consequences accelerated. Impatience led to independent action. Phoenix announced Project Hestia, open sourcing critical climate monitoring APIs to accelerate global research. Some called it business suicide, sharing our most valuable intellectual property freely. "Ecosystems thrive on collaboration," Sarah countered in press interviews. Competition strengthened Phoenix. Now partnership will strengthen solutions. The gambit succeeded. Researchers in India, China, Brazil, and Russia built upon our frameworks, creating localized climate models that fed back into Athena's global database. A true innovation ecosystem emerged. During this explosion of activity, Emily entered 3rd grade. One parent-teacher conference, Mrs. Robinson, her educator, requested a meeting about an unusual presentation. Emily had created a poster titled, "My Daddy Saves the World," featuring hand-drawn climate graphs and enthusiastic crayon annotations about rising sea levels. Below the title, "Climate Change is When the Earth Gets a Fever. My Daddy Makes Computers That Help It Feel Better." "She's been sharing complex concepts with impressive clarity," Mrs. Robinson noted. "But some parents have concerns about introducing political topics to 8-year-olds. I explained our work's context. Mrs. Robinson nodded sympathetically, adding, "Actually, I was hoping you'd speak to the class. The children are fascinated." Emily's elementary school presentation surprised me. 25 third graders asked questions far more direct than corporate board members. If the polar bear's ice melts, where will they live? Can computers clean the ocean? Why don't grown-ups fix things before they break? That day crystallized our mission's importance. These children would inherit our actions, or inactions. Meanwhile, resistance intensified. The Competitive Enterprise Institute published a white paper claiming Athena's models contained fundamental mathematical errors. The paper gained media traction despite refutations from academic institutions. Worse, William Chen's rival startup secured a $30 billion investment round from petrochemical conglomerates. They launched an advertising campaign positioning their technology as balanced and economically responsible, compared to Phoenix's alarmist predictions. The distortion reached a tipping point during the Brussels Climate Summit. Chen presented climate models that conveniently aligned with fossil fuel industry timelines, suggesting human impact was minimal and adaptable without economic disruption. Dr. Morton's frustration boiled over during a team meeting. They're weaponizing uncertainty. Every time we advance climate science, they create just enough doubt to delay action. Delay benefits some stakeholders, I acknowledged. Acceleration threatens others. How do we combat deliberate misinformation? By making truth more compelling than fiction. We responded with Project Crystal Sky, creating immersive virtual reality environments that let users experience predicted climate scenarios firsthand. If numbers and graphs could be dismissed, perhaps direct experience couldn't. The exhibit launched at the New York Climate Action Center. Visitors entered a chamber where VR headsets transported them through time, from today's familiar landscapes to their predicted states in 2040, 2060, and beyond. One participant, a climate skeptic brought by his concerned daughter, emerged visibly shaken. "That's Manhattan?" "That's Manhattan, according to the current trajectory," the exhibit guide confirmed. "The flood walls you saw are our best projections for 2045. The installation spread globally. Each location adapted scenarios to local geography. Phoenix provided the technology. Communities provided the context. In Jakarta, visitors experienced devastating floods. In Phoenix, Arizona, record-breaking heat waves. In the Arctic, disappearing ice caps. Response exceeded expectations. Political leaders who'd ignored scientific reports committed to action after experiencing simulated futures. The premier of Guangdong Province visited our Philadelphia headquarters with immediate infrastructure requests after experiencing China's projected coastal changes. Yet technology alone couldn't satisfy growing demands. Phoenix's computing capacity strained under global climate modeling requests. We needed revolutionary hardware advances. This led to the most audacious partnership yet. I flew to Tokyo to meet Kenji Watanabe, CEO of Nippon Quantum Systems. His company had developed breakthrough quantum processors, but lacked the software expertise to utilize their full potential. Our computers can theoretically simulate every molecule in the atmosphere simultaneously, Watanabe explained through his interpreter. But theoretical and practical remain galaxies apart. Athena could provide the bridge, I suggested, if you're prepared for true collaboration. The proposal sparked opposition from both companies' traditional mindsets. Nippon executives feared sharing proprietary quantum technology. Phoenix's board worried about dependence on a non-American hardware supplier. Sarah mediated the cultural divide. Neither company can save the planet alone. Let's define success as shared solutions, not protected secrets. Negotiations took months. Finally, we structured an agreement. Phoenix would provide all Athena software innovations for quantum optimization. Nippon would manufacture next-generation compute clusters combining their processors with our algorithms. All developments would be co-owned, patents shared equally. The first quantum Athena system assembled in Tokyo exceeded every projection. It modeled global weather patterns in real time with 98.7% accuracy, a scientific breakthrough that made headlines worldwide. But breakthroughs attract sabotage. On the night before Quantum Athena's official presentation at the Global Environmental Technology Conference, we discovered sophisticated malware in our Tokyo facilities systems. This isn't intellectual property theft, David Chen analyzed. This is delete and destroy code designed to erase 5 years of development. The attack traced to multiple origins, suggesting coordinated state actors. Someone wanted Quantum Athena stopped before it could reshape climate policy. Working through the night, our teams isolated the malware, while backups restored critical data. The attack failed, but barely. The presentation proceeded as scheduled, but I couldn't shake the feeling we'd entered geopolitical waters far beyond corporate competition. 2 days after Tokyo, I received an encrypted message from an unknown sender. Your predecessor faced family rivalry. You face forces that topple governments. Choose carefully. The sender's identity remained hidden despite our security team's efforts. Threats came not just from corporations now, but from entities protecting trillion-dollar industries threatened by climate action. Nevertheless, Quantum Athena's success attracted unlikely defenders. The Indian Ministry of Environment, impressed by our monsoon prediction accuracy, offered defense-grade cybersecurity support. The European Space Agency proposed integrating Athena into their Copernicus satellite system. Most surprisingly, Trevor, Henderson reached out again, but with different news this time. My father wants to see you, Trevor said during a secure call. He's in hospice. It's not a reconciliation play. He's terrified about something. Kept mentioning legacy and mistakes. Says he has information you need. I found James in a private facility outside Baltimore. Oxygen tubes couldn't hide his weakened state, but his eyes remained sharp. Michael, he acknowledged with a slight nod. I hear you're saving the world now. Just building solutions. Building. Always building. He coughed painfully. I tried, destroying what you built because I feared what you'd create. You've exceeded even those fears. I waited as he gathered strength to continue. The attacks you're experiencing, they're not random. There's a consortium I discovered while trying to investigate Phoenix's activities. Petrochemical industries, united with authoritarian regimes. They see climate modeling as an existential threat to their power structures. Tell me something I don't know. Someone in your organization is providing them information. They know your systems too well for external attacks alone. My blood chilled. Corporate espionage was familiar territory, but treason endangered everything we'd built. James continued. I was approached by their intermediaries last year. They wanted me to establish contact with your board, recruit someone with access. I refused, but the offer came with threats. Who's the intermediary? William Chen, the climate startup competitor. The puzzle pieces aligned into a disturbing picture. William's funding sources, the sophisticated nature of attacks, the precise targeting of Athena vulnerabilities. Back in Philadelphia, I initiated an internal security audit without alerting my team. Using back channels, I gathered financial records, communication logs, and travel itineraries. The investigation required delicate balance. Paranoia could destroy trust faster than any mole. 3 weeks of covert monitoring revealed the threat's sophistication. Whoever was feeding information had covered their tracks expertly. No obvious financial transactions, no suspicious communications, no unexplained absences. Until Emily's school science fair. My daughter had created an energy efficiency project using Phoenix's environmental algorithms in simplified form. She'd spent weeks at the office scanning documentation and interviewing staff. During the fair presentation, I reviewed her credited sources with growing unease. Emily had accessed my private files through an old shared login, a security oversight I'd meant to address. But in those files, she'd also documented interactions with various company members, including timestamps that matched my security audit's suspicious activity logs. The pattern crystallized. A long-serving employee had been accessing my private files through that old credential. Someone I'd never suspected. Someone integral to every major decision. That evening, using encryption tools David Chen had provided, I set a digital trap. Falsified documents about Project Nebula, a fictional quantum encryption initiative, were planted where the suspected credential would access them. By morning, William Chen had released a press statement about environmental computing's encryption vulnerabilities, using specifics that could only come from the trapped documents. The evidence pointed to Bradley Morrison, no relation to our client David. Morrison, but an engineer I'd personally recruited from Stanford 3 years earlier. Background checks had been impeccable. Performance reviews are excellent. A model employee hiding allegiance to opposing interests. I conferred with Sarah before taking action. He's been here almost since we launched Athena. Perfect timing to position himself as our spy. Sarah's expression hardened. How do we handle it? Corporate espionage carries criminal penalties. We handle it like the geopolitical entities he's working with. Leverage and extraction. The confrontation happened off-site, at neutral ground. I met Bradley at a downtown cafe where recording devices stood little chance of capturing useful audio amid ambient noise. Coffee's excellent here, I began conversationally. I first came here after Uncle Richard's announcement. Good place. For difficult conversations. Bradley maintained composure, but his micro-expressions revealed recognition that I knew. The thing about building from scratch, I continued, is you notice every misaligned component, every inefficiency, every element that doesn't belong. Sir, if this is about my request for, it's about Project Nebula's unexpected exposure. Strange how fictional projects generate such specific public commentary. His hand trembled imperceptibly around his coffee cup. Here's what happens next, Bradley. You have 2 options. Option 1, we pursue legal action for corporate espionage, treason if those petrochemical consortiums are connected to foreign adversaries, federal prosecution, decades in prison. I let that sink in before continuing. Option 2, you provide the complete network, every contact, every transaction, every plan. Then you deliver William Chen's consortium actionable misinformation for the next 6 months while we systematically dismantle their operations. They'll kill me if they suspect. They'll be too busy managing the deliberate chaos you'll create. We're not after revenge, Bradley. We're after eliminating the threat to global climate response. 2 hours later, I had recordings of Bradley's full confession and cooperation agreement. The conspiracy's scope exceeded even James's warnings. A network spanning 3 continents, involving energy companies, defense contractors, and state-sponsored hackers. Within days, Bradley began feeding filtered misinformation. The consortium believed they were redirecting Quantum Athena development toward profitable but ineffective solutions. Meanwhile, our real teams accelerated breakthrough research. The strategy worked brilliantly until Bradley disappeared. His last communication arrived as an encrypted email. They know, moving to the extraction point Delta. Documentation attached. VI. Attached files contained a treasure trove, financial records, communication transcripts, even recorded meetings where consortium members discussed permanently removing Phoenix's threat to economic stability. But Bradley's extraction never happened. Turkish authorities found his body in an Istanbul apartment, ruled a suicide. The evidence suggested otherwise. Traces of advanced neurotoxins typically used by state intelligence services. His sacrifice haunted our team. We'd asked for his cooperation, knowing the risks. Now, his death raised the stakes dramatically. This confirms we're not fighting corporate spies anymore, David Chen assessed during an emergency security briefing. These are people prepared to kill to maintain the status quo. The revelation forced a strategic pivot. Phoenix couldn't rely on corporate security protocols against state-level threats. We needed governmental protection while maintaining independence. I reached out to Senator Holloway with Bradley's complete disclosure. Within hours, the FBI initiated a major investigation. Federal protection appeared at every Phoenix facility. The Bureau began tracking the consortium's financial flows across international jurisdictions. The investigation's findings shocked even prepared observers. The oil industry's opposition to climate action had evolved into an international criminal enterprise. Money laundering through shell companies, cyber warfare against environmental organizations, assassination contracts on scientists and activists, Phoenix, had inadvertently become ground zero for this shadow war. Our climate modeling threatened economic empires built on industrial-age power structures. As Athena's accuracy improved, these stakeholders' desperation escalated. 3 months after Bradley's death, the Department of Justice indicted 17 individuals, including William Chen. The European Union coordinated raids on consortium operations. Global law enforcement dismantled a network that had operated since the late 1990s to suppress climate science. William Chen attempted to flee to non-extradition territories but was apprehended at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. His trial revealed Phoenix's pivotal role, how our technological breakthroughs had exposed their vulnerabilities, forcing increasingly desperate measures. During this upheaval, an unlikely message arrived. Uncle Richard requested a video call from his Florida retirement. I hadn't spoken to him since receiving his journals months earlier. The video connected to show a study I didn't recognize, clearly his new residence, comfortable but modest. Uncle Richard looked aged but healthy, his eyes carrying familiar determination. "Mike," he began directly, "I've been following your situation. Bradley Morrison, William Chen. The consortium is trying to shut you down." "How did you—" "James kept me informed before he passed. And I may be retired, but I still have contacts. You're not fighting electronics companies anymore. You're challenging power structures that predate modern corporations." "I understand the stakes. Do you? They'll use every resource, financial, political, violent, to prevent Athena from reshaping energy policy. What they fear isn't just lost profits, it's revolution. So what's your advice? Step back? Sell out? Never. This is exactly what I hoped for when I first hired that 16-year-old kid who wanted to fix broken circuit boards. You're not just building technology now, you're building history's hinge point." The call's encryption suddenly failed. A deliberate interruption, typical of intelligence monitoring. We said quick goodbyes, but his words resonated. History's hinge point. In Washington, Senator Holloway invited me to testify before an emergency joint session. The subject: industrial espionage threatening national security through environmental science suppression. The Capitol building felt heavier than previous visits. Armed guards lined corridors. Metal detectors operated at multiple checkpoints. The atmosphere suggested more than corporate testimony. Before the committee, I presented evidence of the consortium's activities. Detailed slides showed their technological sabotage attempts, financial manipulations, and ultimately Bradley's murder. But I focused testimony on the future. The fossil fuel industry isn't wrong to fear climate technology. They're wrong to fight inevitability through violence and deception. Quantum Athena represents more than climate modeling. It represents humanity's evolution from reactive survival to predictive adaptation. Questions challenged our security protocols, financial transparency, and international partnerships. Some senators appeared sympathetic. Others seemed intent on finding American weaknesses to exploit. Dr. Hartman, Senator Thomas from Oklahoma, pressed, "Your company's foreign connections, particularly with Nippon Quantum Systems, could compromise American technological supremacy." Senator, "Scientific breakthroughs don't respect borders. Climate change certainly doesn't. Would you prefer an America that leads global solutions, or one that hoards technology while the planet burns?" The exchange went viral. Media portrayed the hearing as old energy versus new innovation, nationalism versus global cooperation, short-sighted profits versus sustainable futures. Emily watched the live stream from school with her teacher's permission. That evening, she approached me with a question that cut through political complexity. "Daddy, if those bad people want to stop you from helping the planet, why don't we just make more good people to help?" Her innocence highlighted our ultimate strategy. The consortium couldn't suppress truth if millions understood it. Fear couldn't override knowledge if education preceded indoctrination. This inspired Phoenix's next initiative, the Global Climate Literacy Project. We developed free, interactive tools teaching environmental science to students worldwide, starting with elementary concepts, energy cycles, ecological balance, human impact. Progressing to advanced modeling, anyone could run on basic hardware. The project launched in conjunction with the National Education Association. Within 6 months, 80,000 classrooms globally integrated Phoenix materials. Children learned scientific method by testing hypotheses about climate variables in real time. The educational initiative succeeded where corporate competition had failed. Grassroots understanding built immunity to misinformation. When industry groups attempted to question Athena's conclusions, citizens now possessed baseline knowledge to evaluate claims critically. International adoption accelerated. Finland integrated our curriculum nationwide. South Korea used Athena predictions to reshape industrial policy. Brazil requested custom modeling for Amazon preservation strategies. Yet, success generated unexpected diplomatic pressures. The Chinese Ministry of Science invited me to Beijing for private discussions about technology transfer. Russia proposed joint Arctic climate monitoring. The European Commission offered to make Phoenix the official environmental computing partner for all EU initiatives. Each invitation carried implied threats about consequences of refusal. Global powers recognized that controlling climate modeling meant controlling economic narratives, infrastructure investments, and ultimately, political leverage over resource distribution. The geopolitical chessboard expanded rapidly. Phoenix's Colorado facility experienced mysterious power grid failures later attributed to foreign cyber operations. Our Nippon partnership faced Chinese import restrictions. Even domestic politics shifted as competing interests fought to align Phoenix with their agendas. Pressure peaked during the Tokyo Environment Summit. As keynote speaker, I was to present Quantum Athena's latest predictive capabilities. The night before, intelligence officials from 4 nations requested separate briefings about Phoenix's political allegiances. We're a private company focused on environmental solutions, I repeated to each delegation. Environmental solutions have military applications, the American CIA liaison countered. Climate predictions affect troop deployment, resource allocation, disaster response. You're building tools that could win or lose future conflicts. Or prevent conflicts entirely, I suggested. The summit proceeded amid unprecedented security. Quantum Athena's demonstration showed ocean current changes affecting global shipping routes, agricultural shifts redistributing food production capacity, and resource access patterns that could trigger migration-driven conflicts. These predictions weren't theoretical anymore. The Philippine government requested emergency projections for typhoon season. Dutch authorities needed flood risk assessments for their enhanced dike systems. Australia's military sought wildfire prediction models for operational planning. Each request connected environmental data to immediate consequences. Phoenix wasn't just modeling climate change, we were mapping the future's fault lines. Standing ovation followed the presentation, but private messages revealed deeper implications. OPEC representatives offered lucrative contracts to limit predictive precision in their regions. Defense contractors proposed military-specific weather modeling projects. Intelligence agencies suggested collaborative research on climate-related social instability prediction. The requests represented precisely what Bradley Morrison warned about: attempts to weaponize or constrain our technology according to various agendas. Each offered enormous financial benefits, and each threatened our core mission if refused. Sarah's counsel proved invaluable. We're at the center of converging storms: economics, political, environmental. The only safe position is maintaining scientific integrity while building strategic redundancies. This led to Phoenix's most ambitious expansion yet. The Distributed Athena Network, DN, replicated our systems across 50 locations globally, each with autonomous operation capability. No single government or entity could shut down climate modeling if regional systems maintained the network. Implementation required unprecedented international cooperation. Switzerland provided neutral hosting for the central coordination node. South Africa contributed quantum computing clusters for Southern Hemisphere monitoring. Canada offered Arctic Research Station access. The UAE funded Desert Climate Laboratories. DANS-E. Distributed architecture frustrated control attempts. When the Russian government demanded exclusive access to their region's modeling, we demonstrated that predictions required global data integration. When some American legislators tried to restrict Chinese access, we explained that atmospheric patterns ignore geopolitical boundaries. The network's success attracted both celebratory headlines and assassination attempts. 2 coordinated drone car strikes targeted Phoenix executives traveling internationally. Our security measures prevented casualties, but the message was clear. Some interests preferred a world without accurate climate prediction. These attacks paradoxically strengthened our position. Public outcry forced government protection for Phoenix personnel. International law enforcement agencies increased scrutiny of anti-environmental criminal networks. Scientific institutions worldwide rallied behind protecting research freedom. Most importantly, the violence exposed the desperation of climate denialism's biggest stakeholders. Each attack validated Athena's importance and undermined attempts to question its necessity. During this intense period, Emily's school invited industry leaders for career day presentations. I hesitated to bring my daughter further into the spotlight, but she insisted, "Daddy, if bad people make you nervous to share the truth, then they're winning a little bit already." Her elementary school wisdom humbled me. I accepted the invitation. The presentation to 59-year-olds became unexpectedly profound. I avoided technical details, focusing instead on questions. What happens when you know something's broken, but some people don't want you to fix it? What if helping everyone requires changing how we've always done things? Can something be wrong even if it's been normal for a long time? The children grasped concepts adults struggled with. One student, Aisha, raised her hand. "My grandma says everything was better before. But if it was better, why is stuff breaking now?" Perfect articulation of generational climate perspective differences. Adults anchored to past normalcy. Children confronting future reality. After the presentation, Emily's teacher, Mrs. Robinson, requested a private conversation. "We've noticed something remarkable. Students engaging with Phoenix's curriculum outperform not just in science, but in critical thinking across all subjects. They're learning to question assumptions, evaluate evidence, think systematically. Education was always our long-term strategy. It's working. The school board wants to expand integration district-wide. But some parents worry about political influence in education. Science isn't political. Reality has no party affiliation. The district's expansion proposal triggered local controversy. Parents are divided between embracing innovative education and fearing indoctrination. Town hall meetings crescendoed into shouting matches about curriculum control. During one particularly heated session, an elderly resident, Mr. Johnson, stood to speak. I recognized him from Uncle Richard's old neighborhood. I knew Richard Henderson, he declared. Watched him build that electronics shop, then saw it transform. Now I watch his nephew change how we think about the future. Some of you say this is politics. I say this is progress. If my grandkids live on this planet, they deserve accurate information about its condition. His words shifted the room's dynamic. Local boy who succeeded through innovation couldn't be easily dismissed as an outsider pushing agendas. The district vote passed with clear majority support. Phoenix's educational impact multiplied through unexpected amplification. Teen climate activists like Sierra Rodriguez incorporated Athena data into their advocacy. Her viral TikTok series, Climate Science Made Simple, reached millions of young people traditionally disconnected from environmental issues. We're not just teaching students, Sarah observed during our quarterly review. We're creating an international community of informed citizens. That's more powerful than any corporate alliance. The truth became evident when the Global Environmental Education Network formed organically. Teachers worldwide connected to share Phoenix materials, develop local adaptations, and support each other's efforts. No central organization, just passionate educators united by accessible climate science. This grassroots momentum couldn't be easily redirected or suppressed. When the Australian government attempted to restrict Athena access citing national security, university students nationwide protested. When oil lobbyists pressured Canadian schools to drop Phoenix curriculum, parent associations demanded transparency. Public opinion crystallized around a simple principle: accurate environmental information is a public good, not a threat. The pendulum of influence swung decisively. Consortium members found themselves defending actions rather than attacking innovations. Shell executives faced uncomfortable shareholder questions about funding climate disinformation. ExxonMobil's board dealt with public pressure for honest environmental assessment. Some fossil fuel companies pivoted strategy entirely. Equinor contacted Phoenix proposing collaboration on renewable energy transition modeling. Total wanted offshore wind farm optimization algorithms. Even traditionally resistant organizations recognized adaptation offered better long-term survival than suppression. But adaptation brought new challenges. Major oil companies offered acquisition deals disguised as partnerships. Their messaging suggested joining forces for holistic energy solutions, while their contracts included restrictive intellectual property clauses that would effectively control Athena development. They're trying to buy what they couldn't break. David Chen warned during merger discussions with BP representatives, "I rejected all offers directly." Phoenix exists because existing companies couldn't or wouldn't address these challenges. We're not interested in being absorbed by the systems. We're trying to transform. These rejections accelerated what observers called the Phoenix effect. Traditional energy companies creating internal innovation divisions specifically to compete with or complement our approach. Some hired away our engineers at extraordinary salaries. Others invested in quantum computing startup ecosystems. Competition actually accelerated overall progress. More resources flowed into climate modeling globally. Universities established Phoenix-inspired research programs. Private capital funded environmental technology at unprecedented levels. Yet beneath this apparently positive development, strategic questions lingered. Was the proliferation of climate technology genuinely beneficial? Or were powerful interests creating controlled alternatives to Phoenix's independent approach? The answer emerged during another congressional hearing, this time about technology, competition, and national security. I faced questions about Phoenix's refusal to accept government funding or exclusive national partnerships. Dr. Hartman, the committee chair pressed, "In an era of great power competition, shouldn't critical technologies like Quantum Athena serve American interests first?" Chairwoman, with respect, climate science benefits from international cooperation because climate systems are inherently international. Nationalizing environmental solutions would be like claiming gravity belongs to one country. But our adversaries could use your technology against American interests. Our adversaries are already using their own environmental intelligence capabilities. The question isn't whether they have these tools, but whether global cooperation can prevent environmental competition from becoming environmental conflict. The hearing highlighted a fundamental tension: national security frameworks struggling to accommodate planetary challenges that transcend borders. Phoenix's insistence on open scientific collaboration clashed with traditional protectionist policies. The friction intensified when extreme weather events challenged international relief coordination. A massive hurricane struck Bangladesh simultaneously, with flooding in Venice and wildfires in California. Quantum Athena's models had predicted these convergent disasters with remarkable accuracy. "This is exactly what we warned about," Senator Holloway remarked during emergency funding debates. "Climate models don't recognize borders. Neither should our response." Phoenix played crucial coordination roles. Our predictions helped direct resources efficiently. Our models identified infrastructure vulnerabilities before cascade failures. Our networks connected relief organizations across affected regions. The humanitarian impact couldn't be denied. Lives saved numbered in thousands. Economic damages reduced by billions. Ecosystem protections prevented further deterioration. Yet success in crisis response sparked new concerns. If Phoenix could coordinate international disaster response, what prevented them from coordinating other global systems? Energy distribution, migration patterns, economic resources? You've created a parallel global governance system, noted Dr. Rajesh Singh from the International Institute for Strategic Studies during a London conference. Whether intentionally or not, Phoenix wields unprecedented influence over how nations understand and respond to the greatest challenge in human history. His observation was astute but unsettling. Phoenix had indeed accumulated power far beyond a typical technology company. Our decisions about data access, algorithmic priorities, and research focus shaped international policy discussions. This recognition triggered internal soul-searching. During an executive retreat in the Pocono Mountains, away from daily pressures, our leadership team confronted uncomfortable questions. Are we comfortable being the de facto arbiter of climate truth? Should private companies hold this much influence over public policy? How do we ensure Phoenix's power serves global good rather than concentrated interests? Sarah proposed a radical solution: the Phoenix Foundation. Transform our company into a nonprofit organization with transparent governance, scientific advisory boards from every continent, and democratic decision-making processes for major technological developments. But that would mean giving up control, David Chen noted, not arguing but exploring implications. We'd gain legitimacy, I countered. Legitimacy allows us to influence systems far larger than any company could control. The transformation required months of careful planning. Legal structures had to satisfy multiple jurisdictions. Financial arrangements needed to protect our ability to invest in innovation while preventing profit-driven compromises. Governance models had to balance expertise with representation. We consulted extensively, not just with lawyers and business advisors, but with political scientists, ethicists, and international relations scholars. The challenge wasn't just creating a new organizational structure. It was reimagining how global influence could. The Phoenix Foundation's inaugural Global Advisory Council gathered in Stockholm. 100 voices from diverse backgrounds: indigenous knowledge keepers from the Amazon, quantum physicists from Seoul, climate refugees from Kiribati, and economic ministers from landlocked nations, unified by a simple mission: ensuring our technology served humanity's collective survival. I opened the 3-day conference with transparency about our transformation motives. Phoenix began as revenge against personal betrayal. It grew into innovation against corporate suppression. Now it must evolve into service for planetary preservation. The assembly challenged every assumption. Fatima al-Najjar from Jordan questioned why wealthy nations dominated climate modeling when desert populations faced immediate threats. Vladimir Petrov from Siberia demanded accountability for indigenous communities displaced by permafrost melt. Maria Santos from Mexico City raised concerns about urban climate justice, how predictions helped some neighborhoods while ignoring others. Their perspectives revealed gaps in our approach. Quantum computational power meant nothing if its insights didn't reach communities most vulnerable to climate impacts. Accuracy without accessibility perpetuated inequity. Dr. Amaka Okafor from Nigeria's National Space Research Agency articulated the dilemma precisely. You've democratized data collection, but interpretation remains centralized. We need distributed expertise, not just distributed sensors. The criticism stung because it was valid. Phoenix had exported technology without exporting understanding. High-precision models helped metropolitan planners but failed rural farmers, who read weather through natural indicators refined over generations. The solution required rethinking our entire training infrastructure. We initiated the Climate Intelligence Certification Program, not competing with traditional education, but complementing it with practical environmental forecasting skills. Participants ranged from agricultural cooperatives in Kenya to coastal key fishing communities in Vietnam to indigenous monitoring networks in Alaska. The program's first cohort of 2,000 graduated within months. Their insights revolutionized Quantum Athena. A rice farmer from Bangladesh identified monsoon pattern anomalies our algorithms missed. A Inuit weather forecaster corrected Arctic sea ice trajectory models. A Maasai herder predicted drought severity, using animal behavior indicators our satellites couldn't capture. Local wisdom enhanced computational precision. Traditional knowledge systems hadn't opposed scientific methodology, they'd been excluded from it. Integration proved powerfully synergistic. Meanwhile, political maneuvering around Phoenix intensified. The United States Congressional Energy Committee attempted to mandate exclusive American access to Athena predictions. Chinese state media accused us of environmental colonialism. The EU proposed making Phoenix the mandatory climate modeling standard for all member states, effectively granting regulatory approval powers. Each overture came wrapped in threats. Reject American exclusivity, risk funding restrictions. Question Chinese cooperation, face market access barriers. Resist EU standardization, confront competitive disadvantages in Europe. The pressure exposed a fundamental truth. Nations feared climate knowledge less than losing control over its interpretation. Accurate predictions challenged established power structures dependent on environmental exploitation or denial. Our response emphasized independence through interdependence. We expanded the distributed Athena network to 127 nodes globally, ensuring no single jurisdiction could halt operations. Data flowed freely but required multi-party verification for policy applications. Predictions remained available to all, but implementation required local democratic processes. This strategy faced its greatest test when Taiwan Semiconductor requested emergency climate modeling for their fabrication facilities. A cyclone threatened to disrupt global chip production. China immediately protested any Phoenix involvement with Taiwan, threatening sanctions. The situation crystallized competing interests, technological sovereignty, economic stability, and environmental preparedness. Denying assistance could catastrophically impact global electronic supply chains. Providing it risked diplomatic conflict between nuclear powers. I consulted the Foundation's Emergency Response Protocol, a framework developed precisely for such situations. The decision: offer assistance but route it through international, humanitarian channels. The United Nations would technically coordinate distribution to affected semiconductor facilities regardless of geopolitical tensions. The approach worked initially. Chip production continued with minimal disruption, but it established a precedent. Phoenix technology increasingly operated in zones where national sovereignty and global necessity overlapped uneasily. You've become what James feared, Trevor. Henderson observed during one of our quarterly check-ins. He'd maintained contact as an advisor despite our history. Not a technological company, but a quasi-governmental force. Only because governments fail at genuinely global challenges. Which is precisely why they'll pressure you to align with their specific agendas. They can't eliminate you, so they'll try to capture you. His warning materialized through unexpected vectors. The Global Climate Fund, ostensibly an international finance mechanism, offered Phoenix a $50 billion endowment for unrestricted research. Investigation revealed the funding actually originated from sovereign wealth funds in oil-producing nations, seeking to influence our research priorities indirectly. Simultaneously, corporate overtures evolved into merger proposals exceeding $1 trillion. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google formed a consortium offering to create a truly global environmental computing platform, absorbing Phoenix while maintaining its mission. Behind closed doors, executives admitted they feared regulatory pressure to break up big tech could be mitigated by controlling essential climate infrastructure. Each proposition contained compelling arguments. Financial security would accelerate research. Corporate resources could expand Athena's reach. Integration with existing cloud infrastructure could improve predictive modeling efficiency. The offers weren't attempted suppression. They represented sophisticated co-option. "They're building golden cages," Sarah assessed during executive deliberations. "Not to restrict us, but to make restrictions seem absurd when we hold the keys." The distinction mattered critically. Outright suppression created martyrs and galvanized opposition. Comfortable captivity created compliance and gradual compromise. Our rejection strategy focused on making Phoenix structurally incompatible with acquisition. The Foundation's charter prohibited ownership stake sales exceeding 5% to any single entity. Decision-making authority remained distributed across scientific advisory committees. Critical algorithms contained embedded ethical constraints, preventing their use for exclusive commercial or military advantages. These barriers frustrated potential acquirers, but also protected our independence. When Apple attempted to circumvent ownership limitations through client service agreements exceeding Phoenix's annual budget, we discovered their true interest. Not climate modeling per se, but the quantum computing methodologies that could revolutionize artificial intelligence development. The interconnection between climate modeling and AI capabilities revealed an emerging battleground. Our quantum optimization techniques for processing environmental data could transform computing itself. Nations and corporations weren't just fighting over climate predictions, they were positioning for dominance in the next technological epoch. China's Ministry of Science invited me for private summit discussions in Beijing. The official agenda covered environmental cooperation. The actual focus became clear through carefully worded questions about Phoenix's quantum algorithms and their potential non-environmental applications. Dr. Hartman, Minister Wu Jianping stated during a formal banquet, "Climate modeling and strategic computing share many mathematical principles. Collaboration in one area naturally benefits others." I responded with equal indirection. Science advances through open exchange rather than exclusive access. The diplomatic dance continued through multiple courses, each delicacy accompanied subtle references to comprehensive partnerships and strategic alignments. The message remained consistent. China wanted Phoenix's quantum capabilities, climate applications being merely the acceptable public rationale. Similar conversations occurred in Brussels, Tokyo, and Washington. The Pentagon's defense advanced. Research Projects Agency proposed funding Athena development through civilian channels. British intelligence services suggested joint research into climate-related conflict prediction. France's National Research Agency offered to establish a European Phoenix headquarters with unprecedented tax incentives. Each overture highlighted how environmental technology blurred traditional boundaries between civilian and strategic applications. Predicting weather patterns inherently included considerations for naval operations, Air Force logistics, and battlefield conditions. Modeling resource scarcity naturally influenced military planning for conflict prevention or engagement. Dual-use nature of our technology demanded careful ethical navigation. We developed strict protocols distinguishing between environmental protection applications and potential weaponization. But the line often blurred. Was predicting agricultural failure that could trigger regional instability military intelligence, or humanitarian early warning? The complexity deepened when actual conflicts erupted. A border dispute between Ecuador and Peru escalated partially due to water rights affected by changing precipitation patterns. Quantum Athena had predicted these water stress points with precise geographic accuracy. Both nations demanded our data support their territorial claims. Another crisis emerged in the South China Sea. Maritime boundaries became contentious as rising waters altered island shapes and proximity. Phoenix's coastal evolution models became legal documents in international maritime court proceedings. 5 nations cited our predictions as evidence for their competing territorial assertions. The legal precedents worried our international law advisors. "You're creating an evidentiary standard for sovereign border disputes," they warned. Environmental data becoming legal doctrine puts Phoenix in an impossible position. Neutral provider of information or partisan arbiter of national interests? We attempted to resolve this through radical transparency. All predictive models became publicly accessible through immutable blockchain records. Historical accuracy metrics for every prediction remained permanently visible. Methodological assumptions could be independently verified by any nation or institution. Yet transparency itself became politicized. Nations with advanced scientific infrastructure could better interpret and utilize our data than developing countries. This capability gap threatened to widen existing inequalities in climate response and adaptation. Dr. Kwame Asante from Ghana's Environmental Protection Agency articulated the concern during a UN forum. Data democratization without capacity building merely shifts power from those who control information to those who can analyze it effectively. This insight catalyzed Phoenix's next evolution, the Global Climate Intelligence Institute. Beyond providing data and training, we began building analytical capacity within every nation. Local teams developed expertise in interpreting predictions for their specific contexts, combining Athena's precision with indigenous knowledge systems. The Institute's first major success came in the Caribbean. Hurricane prediction models developed by local meteorologists using Phoenix tools surpassed our centralized forecasts for regional accuracy. Their understanding of microclimates, traditional storm indicators, and community vulnerabilities produced insights our generalized algorithms missed. Similar breakthroughs occurred globally. Indian monsoon researchers improved precipitation timing predictions. Sami reindeer herders enhanced Arctic temperature gradient analysis. Pacific Islander navigation experts refined ocean current modeling around archipelagos. These successes validated our transformation from technological provider to knowledge ecosystem facilitator. Phoenix's true innovation wasn't computational power, but the architectural design enabling global intelligence integration. The success attracted new forms of resistance. Corporate entities threatened by distributed environmental expertise launched sophisticated influence campaigns. Think tanks published reports questioning the quality of amateur climate modeling. Industry conferences excluded Phoenix certification holders from presenting their findings. The campaign peaked during the Dubai Environmental Technology Summit. A consortium including Shell, Chevron, and Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries unveiled the Professional Standards Initiative for Climate Modeling. They proposed certification requirements that would effectively exclude Phoenix-trained analysts from policy influence. Their argument gained traction with some governments wary of Phoenix's growing influence. Saudi Arabia and Russia endorsed the initiative, suggesting it would maintain scientific rigor while transparently aiming to restrict access to climate modeling capabilities that threaten their economic models. The contest revealed the true battle. Not between climate action and denial, but between centralized and distributed control over environmental truth. Traditional power structures couldn't suppress Phoenix directly, so they attempted to define legitimacy in terms that maintained their authority. Our counter-strategy relied on undeniable effectiveness rather than credentials. When Phoenix certified, community planners in Honduras reduced hurricane damage costs by 40% compared to traditional approaches. Results spoke for themselves. When distributed monitoring in Indonesia provided 3 days additional warning for tsunami-triggered flooding, lives saved transcended bureaucratic arguments. The accumulating evidence of improved outcomes gradually shifted policy debates. Nations began requesting Phoenix's distributed expertise model rather than resisting it. Development banks included climate intelligence capacity in infrastructure funding criteria. Insurance companies adjusted premiums based on Phoenix-verified community preparedness levels. Yet success in implementation revealed new vulnerabilities. As Phoenix's influence expanded, the sophistication of attacks evolved. Cyber attacks targeted not just our systems but the distributed network participants. Disinformation campaigns aimed at discrediting local experts rather than central technology. In a particularly insidious operation, a coordinated social media attack portrayed Phoenix-trained analysts as climate zealots, manipulating data to justify authoritarian controls. The campaign carefully mixed legitimate concerns about potential technological overreach with fabricated evidence of predictive errors. The operation's sophistication suggested state-level resources. The messaging targeted specific cultural and political fault lines: climate science versus traditional values in certain regions, economic development versus environmental protection in others, foreign influence versus national sovereignty, across many. Countering required equally sophisticated response. We developed a digital reality verification system, allowing communities to independently confirm prediction accuracy against observable outcomes. Transparent error analysis showed where models succeeded or failed, building trust through accountability, rather than claims of infallibility. Most importantly, we empowered local populations to validate Phoenix expertise through their own experience. The truth about changing weather patterns, shifting seasons, and ecosystem disruptions existed in communities long before our algorithms quantified it. Our role became amplifying and connecting these ground truth observations into actionable patterns. This approach culminated in the Community Verification Network, 50,000 volunteer observers globally, who independently validated climate predictions against local conditions. Their reports proved more persuasive than any corporate endorsement or government certification. When farmers in Argentina confirmed Phoenix predictions saved their crops from unprecedented drought, skepticism dissolved into pragmatic adoption. The network's success marked a turning point. Environmental understanding became genuinely democratized, rather than merely accessible. Phoenix provided tools, but communities generated truth. The power dynamic shifted fundamentally, from subjects of prediction to participants in sense-making. As Phoenix approached its 7th anniversary since the fateful announcement that changed everything, the transformation was complete. Uncle Richard's attempt to preserve legacy through bloodline had inadvertently catalyzed something unprecedented: a global network of environmental intelligence transcending corporate, national, and technological boundaries. Standing on Phoenix's Philadelphia headquarters rooftop, watching the city's skyline reflect sunset light off the Delaware River, I contemplated the unexpected journey. The betrayal that once felt devastating had become humanity's advantage. Individual ambition had evolved into collective capability. The quest for personal success had transformed into a shared survival strategy. Emily, now 12 and showing remarkable mathematical aptitude, joined me for our evening ritual of reviewing the day's prediction models. Her questions cut through complexity with surprising clarity. "Dad, if Uncle Richard hadn't pushed you out, would any of this exist? Probably not. So sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes? When we transform them into opportunities, yes." Her observation captured a fundamental truth about resilience and innovation. Crisis didn't create capability, it revealed it. Challenge didn't destroy dreams, it refined them. Betrayal didn't end trust, it taught discrimination. The view from Phoenix's heights offered perspective impossible from the valley of initial defeat. 7 years earlier, walking out of Uncle Richard's office, I couldn't have imagined the scope of what would emerge from that rupture. Individual grievance had catalyzed global solution. As night fell, the distributed Athena network's visualization illuminated on massive displays visible from my office window. Light patterns represented real-time data flows across continents, environmental sensors, analytical processors, verification nodes, and community feedback loops creating a living map of planetary understanding. This was the unexpected legacy. Not a company inherited through blood, but a future co-created through resilience. Not a technology owned exclusively, but knowledge shared universally. Not power concentrated in family lines, but capability distributed across humanity. The irony didn't escape me. Uncle Richard's attempt to preserve Henderson heritage through genetic lineage had succeeded differently than intended. The legacy lived not in corporate entities or family names, but in the fundamental shift toward collective environmental intelligence. 7 years. From personal betrayal to planetary transformation. The arc proved that legacies aren't inherited, they're inspired. Success isn't predetermined by birthright, it's earned through response to adversity. And sometimes the greatest gift comes wrapped in the most painful packaging. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Climate models predicted increasing instability. Geopolitical tensions over resources would intensify. The race between adaptation and catastrophe would accelerate. But Phoenix's distributed intelligence network had established the framework for navigating whatever emerged. As I prepared to leave the office, Emily's laptop chimed with a Quantum Athena notification. A late-season hurricane system forming off the West African coast. 7 years ago, such storms caught communities unaware. Now, the global network would track, predict, communicate, and mobilize response with unprecedented coordination. The hurricane's path would be predicted. Vulnerable. Populations would evacuate. Resources would pre-position. Lives would be saved, not through corporate dominance or technological superiority, but through distributed capability born from one man's belief that his nephew deserved nothing. That nephew had proven him right and wrong simultaneously. I deserved nothing handed down through bloodline privilege. I deserved everything earned through persistence, innovation, and dedication to purpose beyond self. Walking to my car, I passed the plaque commemorating Phoenix Technical Solutions' founding. The inscription read simply, "Innovation begins where expectation ends." 8 words capturing 7 years of transformation. The parking garage echoed with footsteps as I approached my vehicle, the same model as 7 years ago, unchanged. Despite dramatically changed circumstances. Success hadn't demanded superficial status symbols. The real change existed in the capacity to create impact rather than accumulate possessions. Driving home through Philadelphia streets, I noticed Phoenix. System components integrated seamlessly into urban infrastructure, enhanced weather sensors on traffic lights, air quality monitors in bus shelters, community climate data terminals in public libraries. The city itself had become an active participant in environmental intelligence gathering. At home, Sarah was helping Emily finish homework while monitoring Phoenix's night shift operations on her tablet. The family scenes looked ordinary, but the context had transformed entirely. Home life now balanced environmental futures for millions. Predicted 3-degree temperature increase for next week, Emily announced without looking up from her geometry. Grass in the backyard will need extra watering unless that forecast changes. Climate forecasting as casual conversation. A 12-year-old discussing temperature predictions with the same ease as sports scores or weather reports. The normalization of environmental awareness marked Phoenix's deepest success. Later, as Emily slept and Sarah reviewed the next day's crisis management protocols, I found myself in the study reviewing Uncle Richard's journals again. One entry, from 1997, resonated anew. James visited today demanding more control over company decisions. Trevor's father wants legacy secured through bloodline. But blood builds nothing. Belief builds everything. Still, family pressure mounts. Fear, may compromise principles for peace. The entry revealed the decades-long pressure that culminated in that fateful boardroom announcement. Uncle Richard hadn't been heartless. He'd been defeated. not by market forces or technological change, but by the relentless demand to prioritize genetic connection over merit-based succession. His failure became my liberation. The journal continued. Young Mike shows promise that exceeds Trevor's, but how can I choose potential over blood? James would never forgive a breach of family tradition. Family tradition had demanded betrayal of talent. In fighting that tradition, I'd created a different legacy entirely. Phoenix's distributed ownership and democratic governance ensured no single bloodline would ever control its future direction. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a secure message from an unexpected sender, James Henderson's estate lawyers. James had passed 3 months earlier, but legal proceedings around his assets continued. The message contained an attachment, James's final testimony, recorded 1 week before his death. Against better judgment, I opened the file. James appeared on video, clearly weakened but focused. His words, delivered in the familiar, gravelly voice. Michael Hartman deserves understanding. I spent decades viewing him as a threat to Henderson's legacy, failed to recognize he was legacy's best expression. Family businesses die. Family values spread. He embodies what Richard tried, to build more purely than his own sons ever could. No apology can bridge the harm I caused, but acknowledgement might. The video ended, leaving profound silence, validation from the person whose opposition had shaped so much struggle and growth. James had finally understood what Uncle Richard glimpsed too late. Blood might determine relation, but character determines legacy. I saved the video but marked it private. Some knowledge served better as personal peace than public vindication. Tomorrow would bring new challenges unrelated to past grievances. Phoenix's mission demanded focus on future transformation rather than historical validation. Climbing into bed beside Sarah, I reflected on 7 years of constant evolution. From betrayed nephew to environmental innovator, from defensive survivor to proactive creator, from individual ambition to collective purpose. The Phoenix name had proven unexpectedly appropriate. Mythological renewal through flames, corporate rebirth through dismissal, personal transformation through forced adaptation. We'd emerged stronger, not despite adversity, but because of it. You know what Emily asked me today? Sarah whispered in the darkness. Tell me. She asked if you miss working for Uncle Richard's company. Know what she said when I explained you now help the whole world, instead of just one company? What? She said good. The world needs more fixing than Uncle Richard's electronics. Silence settled as I processed 8-year-old wisdom distilling 7 years of struggle into simple truth. The world did need fixing. And sometimes, being pushed from familiar ground enabled reaching higher peaks. 7 years ago tonight, I'd driven home from Uncle Richard's office feeling life had ended. In truth, it had merely begun. The betrayal that seemed to destroy everything had created space for building something far more significant. The last thought before sleep. What other apparent endings were actually beginning to be discovered? What other losses contained hidden gifts? What other closed doors opened windows to broader vistas? 7 years of transformation suggested anything was possible when rejection became rocket fuel for reinvention. Tomorrow would bring fresh challenges, but also fresh opportunities. Phoenix's distributed intelligence network stood ready. Humanity's growing environmental awareness gathered momentum. Individual grievance had crystallized into collective capability. Uncle Richard chose blood over merit. In doing so, he'd unintentionally chosen humanity's environmental future over corporate tradition. His mistake became my mission. His betrayal became billions of people's protection. The irony was perfect. Sometimes the best way to preserve a legacy is to let it go completely. In releasing me, Uncle Richard had released forces that would reshape not just business, but humanity's relationship with its only home. The circle closed 7 years after it began. full understanding arriving precisely when vengeance had dissolved into gratitude. What once seemed unforgivable had become unforgettable, not for the hurt it caused, but for the future it enabled. Drifting toward sleep, I smiled at the realization that betrayal's greatest gift might be showing us who we truly are when everything comfortable disappears. Uncle Richard hadn't diminished me. He'd distilled me down to essential courage and creativity. 7 years proved that when inheritance is denied, inner strength is discovered. When positions are revoked, purpose can be found. When family privilege disappears, human connection expands. The Philadelphia skyline glowed dimly through curtains. Somewhere in the city, Phoenix Systems monitored environmental data streams. Across the globe, the distributed Athena network processed atmospheric conditions. On every continent, communities prepared responses based on precise prediction. All because one uncle chose tradition over talent. All because one nephew chose creation over resignation. All because betrayal met resilience instead of bitterness. The greatest revenge proved to be no revenge at all. Just the quiet triumph of building something beautiful from broken promises. Just the satisfaction of transforming personal wound into global healing. Just the peace of knowing that sometimes life's harshest rejections direct us toward our truest purpose. 7 years transformed the curse into a catalyst. Tomorrow would continue that alchemy. But tonight offered simple gratitude for the unexpected wisdom hidden in unwanted changes. The future remained unwritten, but its authorship now included millions, because one man learned that real legacy isn't inherited through blood, it's inspired through character. Uncle Richard taught that lesson despite himself. For that education, delivered through betrayal, I offered silent thanks. Some teachers instruct through inspiration, others through opposition. The lessons endure regardless of methodology. 7 years ago, I lost a position. Tonight, I recognized gaining purpose. The exchange ratios heavily in favor of the future. Uncle Richard's choice, unbeknownst to him, had chosen well. Let tomorrow bring whatever challenges arise. Phoenix, rising from ashes of assumption, growing beyond bounds of bloodline, serving needs larger than individual ambition, stood ready. The journey from betrayal to breakthrough had taken 7 years. The transformation from hurt to help needed only recognition of opportunity within adversity. Uncle Richard gave me both wounds and wings. I chose to fly. 10 years after Uncle Richard's announcement, I find myself on stage at the UN Climate Innovation Summit addressing 3,000 global leaders. Emily, now 16, projects real-time environmental data on massive screens behind me. Phoenix's distributed network pulses with environmental intelligence from every corner of Earth. A decade ago, my uncle believed blood mattered more than building, I tell the audience. Today, that choice has saved millions from environmental catastrophe. The data visualization behind me shifts, showing hurricane paths predicted with 99.8% accuracy, saving 47,000 lives this year alone. It displays drought forecasts that helped African farmers adapt early, preserving 2 million hectares of crops. Arctic melt predictions that enabled indigenous communities to relocate before coastal erosion destroyed their ancestral homes. Uncle Richard wanted to preserve Henderson's legacy through inheritance. Instead, he unleashed innovation through rejection. Trevor Henderson now teaches climate resilience at MIT, proof that people evolve when systems change. Dr. Elizabeth Morton leads our quantum computing division, solving problems we couldn't imagine a decade ago. The presentation climaxes with the Phoenix Global Impact Map. 127 countries using our technology, 400 million people directly protected by our predictions, 15 billion tons of carbon emissions avoided through optimized resource management, numbers that transform personal betrayal into planetary salvation. Off stage, Emily adjusts her quantum earpiece. Dad, New temperature spike was detected in Siberia. The permafrost sensors are showing accelerated methane release. This is the reality Uncle Richard couldn't foresee. Family loyalty seemed important compared to uncapped methane. Corporate succession felt urgent compared to melting ice caps. Blood ties appeared valuable compared to breathable air. Now Phoenix's distributed intelligence responds instantly. Alerts trigger across our global network. Researchers mobilize. Indigenous Siberian communities receive immediate warnings. Climate models recalibrate in real time. The system he inadvertently created through denial now protects the very things he valued, just differently than tradition would prescribe. Later, at the reception, Trevor Henderson approaches me. Remember when I thought marketing credentials would run this tech company? You've learned more than most, because you showed that competence destroys entitlement. Now I teach my students, discomfort precedes enlightenment. Betrayal breeds better systems when answered with purpose instead of vengeance. 3 hours later, I walk Philadelphia streets where Phoenix began. The old Henderson Tech building houses, a climate education center now. Children from underserved neighborhoods learn environmental modeling where I once answered phones at 16. Sarah joins me at our favorite coffee shop. Samantha Chen called. Her granddaughter wants to intern. At Phoenix next summer. Full circle? Expanding circle. We're creating networks, not repeating patterns. That evening, reviewing Phoenix's financial reports, I discover something remarkable. Our nonprofit model generates more profit than Uncle Richard's company ever did, through licensing innovations rather than hoarding them. Distribution creates abundance. Sharing multiplies rather than divides. In my home office, I draft tomorrow's keynote for Silicon Valley's Climate Tech Conference. Uncle Richard's journals sit beside my laptop. His last entry, dated 2 months before the announcement, reads, James's ultimatum arrived. Choose family or merit. Can't sleep thinking about Mike's potential versus Trevor's birthright. He lost. Sleep over the wrong question. The better question, why choose when transformation requires both disruption and continuity? His denial forced me to prove tradition must evolve or perish. Family values survive through adaptation, not repetition. At midnight, Phoenix's systems detect unusual atmospheric patterns forming over the Pacific. Our distributed network springs into action automatically. Governments notified, resources positioned, communities prepared. The system Uncle Richard's choice forced into existence now operates seamlessly, protecting life on scales he could never grasp. Emily's goodnight text arrives. Dad, today in climate ethics class, we discussed you and Uncle Richard. Professor, Williams says betrayal in service of a bigger purpose isn't betrayal at all. Was Uncle Richard secretly heroic? I respond carefully. Heroes and villains are stories we tell about choices. Your great-uncle chose family tradition. That choice created space for new traditions. Sometimes the most important changes come wrapped in painful decisions. Tomorrow will bring fresh challenges. Climate instability accelerates daily. But Phoenix's foundation, built from rejection, strengthened through resilience, expanded through purpose, stands ready. Uncle Richard wanted legacy preserved through bloodline. He achieved it through paradox. Exclusion that created inclusion, denial that demanded innovation, betrayal that birthed transformation. His unintended gift resonates globally now. The uncle who said, "Your cousin will take over," actually said, "The world needs better solutions." He just didn't recognize it. As Philadelphia sleeps, Phoenix guards against environmental threats born from centuries of short-sighted decisions. Uncle Richard's company fixed broken electronics. The company born from its ashes now fixes humanity's broken relationship with Earth. The irony he'd never see. Choosing blood over merit ultimately chose humanity over extinction. Putting family first accidentally put the planet first. Protecting. Tradition paradoxically protected the future. His legacy lives not in corporate succession, but in atmospheric protection. Not in maintained Henderson names, but in sustained Henderson values of innovation and perseverance. Values that transcended his initial vision to serve exponentially larger purposes. Sometimes great achievements require great sacrifices. Sometimes salvation comes from unexpected sources. Sometimes betrayal teaches loyalty to bigger principles. Uncle Richard believed in preserving what he built. By pushing me away, he forced creation of something infinitely larger. The lesson echoes in Phoenix's global operations. When doors close, universes open. When inheritance ends, invention begins. When tradition fails, innovation flourishes. 10 years transformed one man's regret into humanity's resilience. His choice to exclude became the catalyst for ultimate inclusion. The announcement that shattered my world rebuilt it at planetary scale. Every morning, Phoenix systems protect millions unknowingly. The uncle who sought family legacy inadvertently secured human legacy. His announcement, "Your cousin will take over now," actually declared, "The future will take over." Now, for that unwitting wisdom delivered through unwelcome change, I maintain profound gratitude. Some gifts arrive beautifully wrapped. Others come disguised as devastation. The greatest arrive wearing the mask of betrayal while carrying the treasures of transformation. Uncle Richard succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. He just succeeded at something different than he intended. The best legacies often emerge that way, through the beautiful accident of choosing wrongly for all the right reasons. His story teaches timeless truth. The most powerful innovations often arise from our deepest disappointments. The most enduring legacies frequently spring from our most painful rejections. The most important journeys regularly begin when familiar roads close. 10 years proved that inheritance denied can become opportunity discovered. Family first can become humanity first. Bloodline can become a lifeline. Uncle Richard chose Trevor. In doing so, he chose the future. Just in ways he never imagined, serving purposes he never conceived, creating legacies he never anticipated. Sometimes perfect mistakes guide us to imperfect solutions that save the world. For that lesson, Uncle Richard, whether intentionally or not, I finally, completely thank you. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.